guys, this is Miss Nickerson. I'm here to talk to you about the first section of ecology, which is ecological energy and how it flows through organisms and ecosystem. We're in chapter 2 of the book, which starts on page 32 of section 1. We'll start here with what ecology is and what ecologists do. I think you guys have a pretty good grasp of what ecology is from junior high, but if you don't, you might want to reread through this section about what is ecology and what does an ecologist do. Our first actual sticky note comes in when we're talking about some different vocabulary, biotic and abiotic. The prefix a means without or against, and so we know that these two are probably the opposite of each other. I want you to see what these two terms mean and be able to list some actual factors in an ecosystem. So if you think of the Crater Lake, what are some biotic and abiotic factors? That's on page 35. Okay, we go to the next page here. It talks about how ecosystems are organized from a single species all the way up to many, many different species living together in an ecosystem. So take a close look at this diagram and look at the different terms, ecosystem, community, population, and organism, and get kind of an understanding of what these different groupings mean. And then see if you could apply it to something like, for example, Klamath Lake. All right, we're turning past page 37 to 38 and 39. It continues talking about those ecosystem organization here. And then it goes into different ways that communities interact with each other, okay? So we know that there's a competition for food, water, and living space, partners to have offspring with. So this competition leads to different ways that organisms interact with each other. One of the ways is we have predators, which I think you guys have a pretty good grasp on. But there are a couple other ways that animals can have relationships together that are not necessarily just predation, okay? But they have some type of, they work together. Okay, this is called symbiotic or symbiosis. And there are three main types of relationships in this. There's mutualism, commensationalism, and parasitism. And so I want you to take a look at those three different types of symbiosis, and I put the letters here to help remind you about them, and see if you can understand them, and we'll be able to give some real life examples of organisms that have this type of symbiotic relationship, okay? Turning to page 40 and 41 now. And then it starts talking about energy in an ecosystem and how it flows from one organism to another. I don't know if you guys have heard the term carnivore before and herbivore before, but there are some other terms, in fact, 6 different ways that organisms obtain energy from an ecosystem and one another, okay? So it starts on page 41 and it continues on into page 42. I want you to take a look at those different types of ways that energy can flow through. Lastly, we're going to take a look, almost lastly, on page 43, we're going to take a look at food chains and food webs. I know they seem very similar, but there's some key differences between the two, and to use as an example of how energy flows through. So take a look at, make sure you can, if I showed you a picture, you can be, oh, that's a food web because of this. Oh, that's a food chain because of this, and then be able to interpret those. That's on page 43. And we finished this chapter with 3 pyramid pictures called ecological pyramids. And they show us a couple different things. They can show us how energy moves up through a food web, how biomass, which is how much physical mass, like, you know, this much grain, this many mass of ants, this mass of a cow, how it moves up through, and then pyramid of numbers. And that's actually, I'm counting the number of things, blades of grass, crickets, hummingbirds, etc. Okay, so take a look at those 3 pyramids and see if we can interpret kind of what's happening. And then also take a look at what we start with at the bottom versus what we end with at the top of each of these. Because the energy available at the bottom of any of these pyramids, whether it's energy, biomass, or numbers, is not the same as what's available at the top of it. Okay, so that's it for our notes for chapter 2, section 1 on ecology and how energy is transferred through ecological systems.